2026 marks the 20th anniversary of my first book, Knitting Nature. And I'm pretty excited about that. I want to celebrate by publishing a few individual patterns from the book, which I wasn't able to do before, but now I will be able to, one at a time. So we're gonna pick like 6 of them, and I want your help. I need your help with it. There's going to be a newsletter with a poll that links to a poll. So please sign up for my newsletter on the website, on my website, and you'll get this full poll about which sweaters you'd like to see reprinted and what changes you'd like to see made. Because in the last 20 years, knitting has changed so much. There are so many things I'd like to change. Some things I did with seams that I'd like to do seamless. Some things were bottom up, I'd like to do top down. I also want to ask you about that. Like, would you like that changed or wouldn't you? So it'll be a pretty extensive poll with pictures and clear questions and everything. But meanwhile, I want to go through the book today and tell you a little bit about how it's arranged and show you some of the sweaters from the book. And then I'm going to go through the sweaters that I think we're going to have in the poll. So you'll get a good overview. There are 39 sweaters in the book, and I think we're going to touch on maybe about half of them here. I'll try not to drone on and on. So I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Nora Gaughan, and I'm a knitwear designer. I've done books like Knitting Nature, Nora Gaughan's Cable Sourcebook, Nora Gaughan's Twisted Stitch Sourcebook, and Knitfold Pleat Repeat. So today, of course, we're talking about my first book, Knitting Nature. I wanted to show you the cover again. This is the cover of the hardcover book. And this was a surprise to me when I realized that under the dust cover, there's another cover altogether. This Afghan's on the cover. And then, just in case you're not confused when you go to the bookstore, they published it in paperback, and that has another cover on it. There's so many covers. So let's talk about the origins of Knitting Nature and how I thought of it. I touched on this a little bit in the video I did with Andrea Gaughan a little while back, but let's do it again for those of you who weren't there. When I was thinking about doing a book, I was in our local bookstore and I saw this book, The Self-Made Tapestry by Philip Ball, and all of a sudden, like, all the pieces fell into place. His book is about shapes in nature from kind of a physics point of view. He talks about bubbles, and he talks about phyllotaxis, and he talks about branching, and all the mechanisms that make patterns in nature. Many of the mechanisms. He's written several really good books on this even since. So that's what got me jump started on this whole idea. So that leads to the book itself, which is divided into 5 different chapters. The first one is actually the first 2 chapters, the first just big subject is bubbles. So bubbles in nature are formed out of hexagons and pentagons, so 6-sided figures and 5-sided figures. And that led me to a lot of thinking about knitting with these shapes. And I'll show you a couple things. Like, I want to do it in this book. I have 2 books here, a paperback and a hardcover, and they're each marked with different things. So in the hexagon section, there are 2 kinds of ways to go about using hexagons in knitting, and one of them is to have a pattern stitch that's hexagonal. And that's what this particular one is. The Honeycomb Henley has a twisted stitch, or like 1/1 cable stitch pattern on it, and it's hexagonal in shape. So that's one approach that I used. And the other one is taking shapes, knitting hexagons themselves, and having them be connected to each other. So this is the snapping turtle skirt, and it's made from rows of hexagons. And each of those hexagons are knit from the outside in, and they're attached to each other as you go. So say you have one hexagon knit and you want to do a second one, you cast on 5 of the sides and pick up the 6th side and then join in the round and work inward. And that's how the skirt is made. It gets bigger because each row of hexagons has one more stitch in each of the 6 triangles that make up the hexagon. So when we look at the what's going to be in the pole, I'll show you several other things from this chapter. So the other shape that is in bubbles are pentagons. And again, I took a similar approach. Some of the items are made from pentagons. So this particular shawl, can I remember the name of it? Here we go. It's the starfish shawl, because starfish are pentagonal in nature. Starfish shawl is made from a big pentagon, and the increases are oh no, I can't remember which way it is. I believe they're decreases, so you start huge and go down. You know, I don't remember every single detail from this book from the 20 years. But it's a big spiral shape that is a pentagon, and there are openings left for your armholes, so it's a little more than a shawl. It's kind of a vest at the same time. But another piece from this section, from the pentagon section, is this Aran, where the cables themselves form pentagonal shapes. So that's 2 examples of how to work with pentagons. In the next chapter, I start to talk about spirals. So there are 2 different kinds of spirals in the world. Let me find you the right picture here. There's the spirals of Archimedes, which is like a cinnamon roll. Like the spiral stays the same distance from itself as it rolls up. But a logarithmic spiral starts small and gets bigger and bigger in a logarithmic or mathematical way. And that's what I mostly looked at, because in nature, there are both kinds of nature, but there are a lot of logarithmic spirals in nature. So I want to show you this one. I think this is, wacky is probably not the right word. I was going to say this is maybe the most adventurous piece in the book, where the whole sleeve and shoulder and neck are a big spiral. They're made like a big spiral shell. And the only way to do it is to knit this whole shell. You can't go back and forth, or it's not an easy thing to knit. It is an easy thing to knit, made into a big shell. And you knit the rest of the sweater, and you steek the spiral by sewing it by machine. You probably could also do needle felting, but at the time when this book was written, I didn't know anything about needle felting for steeks. So this is sewn down one side and split open, and then sewn onto the rest of the sweater. So that's what makes it adventurous. And there are also spirals like the ram's horn jacket, where the collar itself is like a big spiral. And ram's horn, of course, are a really good example of spirals in nature. And then we get to the chapter that's called Phyllotaxis. And phyllotaxis, I think, if I'm remembering the term correctly, means the growth of plants. But mostly we're referring to the placement of leaves and branches on stems. And most plants, the stem comes out I believe it's 137.5 degrees away from the next one. So in a very organized way, they come off of the stem. And something like that's very true with the way sunflowers grow. It has two sets of spirals, one going each direction, and they are in a Fibonacci series. Like there are 17 one direction and 13 the other. I might have gotten those numbers wrong, so please, math people, well, you can correct me, but I don't remember exactly. But there are spirals going each direction, so it's all about the growth of plants and leaves on plants and seeds in plants. The first one I want to show you here is in a way a spiral also, but it has leaves attached as the rectangle of the tank goes around the body. Then there are leaves at a certain angle. I didn't go crazy and do the 137, or there wouldn't have been enough leaves on this. So that's a more adventurous one too. You'll notice that some of the things in the book look like classic sweaters, but they have a twist, and some of them are like a completely new made up structure for the sweater, and I would say that's what this one is. I also explored the phyllotaxis idea with this tam, and that has the spirals that go two directions, like the sunflower, but like a sunflower head. And I didn't, again, go so far as to make it mathematically correct because I thought that would be very difficult. And I think it's important to keep things like this easy for the knitter. So the idea comes across, but it was easy to execute. So a lot of times people think that my sweaters are too hard to knit. Like people are like, oh, I've never knit an Oregon sweater because they're so hard. Truth be told, and I know this is kind of my tagline, but it's not as hard as it looks because I'm kind of lazy and I don't want it to be too hard to knit. So I make sure that something is logical about it. And that's why the tam is designed this way, not with mathematically the right number of spirals around, but so it gives the suggestion of correctness. So the next chapter is fractals. And I didn't know anything about fractals when I started this chapter. It was one of those things that was introduced to high school mathematics, or maybe even elementary school mathematics, after I got out of school. And I was totally thrilled by this. I would have loved studying fractals. And a fractal is something that is self-similar at different scales. So picture a tree branch. The little teeny branches and the medium-sized branches and the bigger branches, they're all off at the same angle. They all come off of each other in the same way. So no matter where you look at that, it looks very similar, whether you're pulled way back or you're zoomed way in. So I did do a sweater that's all about branching. It's got cables like an Aran, but there are branches. I called it Branching Aran Guernsey. I have like all the terms in there. And then let's talk about the last chapter, which is like fluid dynamics. And I'll just show you one from this chapter. It's called the Droplet Hat, and it's done from a photo I saw of a droplet of water going down, or milk maybe it was, into a bigger thing of water, and the droplets that came up from that, and that all led to this droplet hat. Now that you've had the overview introduction to the book, I want to really focus in on the ones that are going to be in my poll, the ones that I'm considering for republication. There are going to be a lot of changes because through most of the book, there's not what is now considered inclusive sizing. Like a lot of the sweaters only went up to a bust 48. I noticed maybe one of them goes up to 60 and a couple up to 52-inch bust. But I and everyone in the industry likes to do a better job of that now, of inclusive sizing, and I think it's important. So for anything I republish, I'm definitely going to do the inclusive sizing. And then comes the issue of, should there be fewer seams, more seams? Should it be bottom up, top down? So I'm kind of going to go through these and give my thoughts now, but I'll be really clear in the poll that we put out, because I want your input on which changes we should make besides the inclusive sizing. So the first one I'm considering reprinting is the basalt tank, and I happen to have a sample of it here. A lot of samples over the years I gave away or lost. I must have given them away, the ones I can't find. But I do have a handful here, and a bunch of them are ones, that I'm considering the republication for. So the basalt tank, here it is in person, is made of mostly whole hexagons, and it's got some pieces that are partial. Like here's the side piece that the armhole is made from, and it's a little fancy. The side pieces hang down, if you can see, which some people didn't love. I found that actually it was quite flattering, depending on how tight the sweater was, whatever. But also, if you look on Ravelry, you'll see that the people who made it, a lot of them filled in the center. Here, I'll hold this up again. They filled in the center hole there with a half a hexagon. And when you do that, you can just put a garter band around the bottom to give a finish to the half hexagon. So the thing that might change here is that each of these hexagons was actually knit flat and seamed. Now, I don't think you can see that seam, but I did it that way because I thought that most people didn't want to work with double pointed needles. No one 20 years ago, I shouldn't say no one, I'm sure that's not true, but people weren't commonly working with magic loop, which loads of people know how to do now. And so that was why these weren't knit in the round. And I think it's obvious to me that that would be a better way to do it. So I would like to redo that. It has to be rewritten because garter stitch, is different flat than in the round, but that'll be pretty easy. So that one I think is kind of a slam dunk that it needs to be knit in the round. I'll maybe ask the question about whether you'd like the version that has the extra half a hexagon in it, so that there's kind of a more flamboyant version and a more basic version of this. The hexagon coat is another pattern that I think this one, it has the look of something that's not too weird. It's pretty normal construction with a back and sleeves that are what we expect of a set-in sleeve in the back, and then the front had a zigzag knit in so that the hexagons fit in perfectly into that. So the whole body of the piece is knit first, and then the hexagons are attached afterwards. So in the original version, these were all separate pieces: front, right front, left front, back, sleeve, sleeve. So I would like to ask you whether you would rather have that all knit top down in the round, and then you attach the hexagons just like you did if they were sewn together, or if you prefer the structure of them all being separate pieces and sewn together. This particular cardigan also is very long, which I love. I still love wearing this, but I think people like options. So they might want a short cardigan, a medium, a long, and I think that would be a pretty easy change for me to build in also. There are only certain points that you can make the length because of the zigzags for the hexagons, but I could tell you which places were really good to start for which lengths. All right, so that takes care of that takes care of the hexagon chapter. I picked a couple from each chapter, I think, or it's not exact, but I tried to cover the whole book in the ones that I thought were good for reprinting. So the next one is the swirled pentagon pullover, and that is behind me. So pentagons, 1, 2, 3, whoops, 4, 5, 6 pentagons and a half of one up here at the back neck make up the yoke of this sweater. And I'm going to take a look at it in the book here so I can describe it to you better. They make up the yoke. In the original, the bottom was knit first in pieces, so it's knit from the bottom up and then shaped so where the pentagons will fit in. And the sleeve's pretty normal, kind of a set-in sleeve, a little low on the shoulder. And the back is really much the same as the front. So those are knit separate, seamed, you know, as was the fashion then. And then the pentagons could be knit separately, but onto each other and make a yoke that's sewn on. Or you can pick up along the edges of the body that's already finished and then work the pentagon yoke up from there. Then the finishing touch is the turtleneck. There's no reason it has to be a turtleneck. I absolutely love turtlenecks, but you can stop at 1 inch and have it be just a crew neck. Or even, this is another thing to check out on Ravelry, some people just left the neck off altogether and had an interesting pentagonal neckline. Since each of those pentagons is ribbing, it made perfect sense to leave that. So that was another interesting thing to do. So then the question is, do I leave the front, the back, the sleeves in pieces from the bottom up, or do I do something that's much closer to top down circular? I haven't decided yet. Do you knit the yoke first or the body and then attach the yoke? That's something I have to think about more. But are people so attached to top down that I should sort of re-engineer that one? Another thing in this chapter with pentagons is the bubble sweater. So I don't have the sample of this one, but it's made from all pentagons. So I didn't talk about this because it's a lot. There's loads of information in the book. Like hexagons, you know, fit together and make a flat surface. That's called tiling. But with pentagons, when you fit pentagons together, they make a ball shape. So think of a soccer ball, which is mostly pentagons with, I think, 2 hexagons to make it fully round. But you can picture all the hexagons onto each other and they form a big bubble or ball. And that's what this sweater is like. So it's big, oversized in the middle, and then it has narrow sleeves attached to it. They're very much like just raglan sleeves. An interesting thing for me about this one is originally, and in the picture, the bubble was meant to be pretty oversized, pretty long and oversized, and then the sleeves were narrow. But when this got, a few years after the book was published, all of a sudden everyone wanted more fitted sweaters, and they made a smaller size than I thought they would, than the recommended size. And that made the sleeves very tight. People didn't seem to mind that. But if you see pictures of it with tight sleeves, that's why, because it was meant to be like big and bubbly and voluminous, which I think would be really well understood now. So that's why I think this is a good one to reprint. There's nothing much to change on this one because you can knit the sleeves first and then the body is knit onto it. I have to check if it's written that way, but it's definitely like not hard to change at all. So that one would be an easy change. And the only problem with this one is making it bigger because of the geometric shape means that it's always longer. So the wider it goes, the longer it is. I have to take a good look at how large that can go up. But maybe that would make a really fabulous dress. That will be part of the survey that we'll go through. Now, spirals. So the first sweater I'm going to show you, it looks pretty normal. It's a top-down cabled sweater, and I was thinking about seashells on this one. So there's not much to change on this one, but it's a matter of, do we want to include this? And of course it would have inclusive sizing. Another one with seashells is the shell tank. We call it the shell tank. And this one has a lot going on. I'll show you it this way. It has a lot going on because there's the chart with the cable on it, which is increasing on, I think, just one side of it, maybe both sides of it. And then there's a little piece of the front to the right of it and a little piece of the front to the left, and then a fairly simple back. But there's side seam shaping, there's shaping next to the cable. On either side, there are like 4 places across the front that there's shaping being made. So this was knit in separate pieces and sewn together, and I think there will be a way to consolidate it, but I think it might be kind of a nightmare to be all circular and top down. We have to study that one, but there'll be questions on that one. Because there are increases in so many places because of the asymmetrical neckline and the A-line shape of the sweater. But I think it's a wearable, a little bit quirky, but distinctive tank that people would want to wear. So we'll see where it comes in on the survey when I have you all vote. There's a spiral sweater that was quite popular called the Philo yoke pullover. It actually is in the Philo-Taxis section, where spirals go 2 different directions. It is, I'm trying to remember whether it was bottom up or top down. But that one does not need many changes. It just needs more sizes. The OG tunic is in the fractal section because at many different scales it looks the same. See at the very bottom, the shape there, and you can see this shape over and over again. There are cables, reverse stockinette, a little lace fill. I'm quite fond of this sweater, and it would be a good one, I think, to do top down. So we'll see how people vote on this one. Originally it was done in pieces, sleeves, front, back. Let's see. Then the coastline camisole and skirt. This is one that because the model looks fabulous in it, but because she's very, very tall, like 5'11", she has a bit of belly showing. There's the skirt's riding low and her belly shows. And the truth is, on someone like 5'4", 5'5", I think there would be hardly any belly showing. So think about how tall you are. But the interesting thing about this particular item is that the tank itself is kind of normal. It's got some nice texture and lace, but it's the embellishments on the bottom that are knit like a fractal. It's a mathematical approximation of a coastline. So there's a triangle with triangles built onto each side, with triangles built onto each side of that triangle. And you're supposed to be able to go ad infinitum to infinity. But of course, with knitting, you can only fit so many in. So there's both a tank top and a skirt. So is this something that people would be interested in? This particular one is knit with fingering weight yarn hold double for most of it and held single for the embellishment coastline part of the bottom. So I think there are loads of yarns out there now that would do the trick. Again, it was knit in pieces, can very easily be changed to being circular. And the last one, nope, there are two more that I want to look at. I don't have this one in front of me. Vortex Street Pullover has a cable down the center that looks like a vortex street, and I have to explain what that is. So picture a bridge, and the bridge has a post that goes right into the water. The rushing water hits the post and keeps going, but that leaves all these spirals of turbulence behind it. If you look down into the water, you can see all these wonderful, and it forms like a street, like a streak of them. It's called a vortex street. So I took this shape and made it into the cable that goes down the center of the sweater. This one was knit from, I believe, the bottom up, and in the round, except the front center part was sewn in. And of course, that can be done all in one piece, and I think that's the way to go. The truth is that when I was writing the book, I found it easiest to send most of the sweater out to a knitter who was working for me to knit the sweater, and I knit the fancy bit, and then it got sewn together. So the reason it was in pieces was really because of how quickly the sweater needed to be made for the book. All right, and then I think I have one more to talk about, and that is in the like waves section, in the turbulence section as well, like the last one was. And this is a funnel. It's called the Turbulence U-neck. It's a funnel shape in the U-neck of this sweater, and cables represent like the turbulence in the water. I had found a picture on the web at the time and used it as my inspiration for this one. And it's a pretty easy to understand sweater with just this embellishment in the front. So set-in sleeves, front, back, set-in sleeves all sewn together. The question on this one will be, if you vote for this one, do we want it top down or do we leave it bottom up? So that wraps up, I think I showed you 11 sweaters that I'm going to put in the survey. Please remember to sign up for my newsletter if you're not already on it, so that you can vote. I will probably put the vote on Instagram too, but you know how that is, like I have 40,000 followers on Instagram and maybe 4,000 people see something, so you know you can't count on seeing it there, but if you sign up for my newsletter you can count on it. So thanks so much. I hope you liked this ride through knitting nature, and I'm really excited that I get to explore it again 20 years later.